So here I am in Superior Drummer 3 in the mix section, and I'll just show you how I mix my drums. This is a mix I already did. This is actually a preset of my own. I'll just get it through what I did and why I did it, because it will be a lot harder for me to. It will take a lot more time to start from scratch. And yeah, so let's start with the panning. As you know, we're keeping the kick and the snare at the center, and I just have here a stereo channel, a stereo track right here for the snare bottom, and I'm for every stereo track, the snare one is a stereo, the overheads are stereo, the ambient trance tracks are also stereo, for the room as well, the extra mics for the room, they're all stereo, and the master as well. I'm just panning channel 1 hard left and channel 2 hard right. And yeah, I have the hi-hat pan left, I have ragtone 1, the highest one hard left, ragtone 2 left, ragtone 3 just slightly right, photon 1 right, and photon 2 hard right. And this is basically the panning. It's simple as that. So for the levels, I'm keeping the kick in and out mics pretty high, but I've lowered down the kicks up because I don't want too much of it. I've left the snare top mic high, and I've turned down a bit the snare bottom. I want the thickness more. I want more of thickness and less of the spring as well. So the hi-hat, I've turned it down a bit, minus 6 decibels. I've turned down the highest ragtone. I'm keeping ragtone 2 and 3 at the same level, and I just turned up a bit more at minus 5 for tone 1, and I've turned down for tone 2 because it's too much there are too much low end frequencies, and it's kind of boomy if it's the same level as for the first 4 tone. So I've turned it down a bit, just a bit. Yeah, I'm keeping the dynamic mic overhead track higher, and I'm turning down the condenser because the condenser usually picks it picks nice high-end frequencies. However, it picks more ambience. So I already have extra room mics, extra room tracks, and this is why I've turned it at minus 3, the condenser overhead, and I've left the overhead dynamics mics, and here I have my room mics. I'm keeping the ambience mics higher, especially the mid one, and I'm keeping all the extra room mics because they really add this nice reverb and the whole color of the room, but I don't want too much of it because it's really washing away all the sound. So yeah, this is about the volumes, and let's see how I've processed any single part. So with the kick in, I've just placed an EQ right here. I'm boosting the high frequencies, so I add more attack, and I've placed a high pass filter right here. So I just cut the low frequencies right here to remove some of the boominess of it. And here in the kick out, I've actually boosted some of the low frequencies right here. This is because I like more of the kick out sound. and I don't like the boomness of the kick-in mic. So on the kick out, I've placed the compressor. I've put a compressor right here. The ratio is not too much. 3, maybe 4. Usually I keep it like that. Fast attack and fast release as well. And this, it's simple as that. For the kicks up, I have applied a parametric EQ. Strangely, in Spirit Drummer 3, this parametric EQ doesn't have the Q knob, which is strange, but it's not something that is absolutely bothering me. So I've just used one of the stock presets, kick depth. It boosts the wall frequencies and removes the mid ones at around 350. So it removes the mud, but it adds more wall frequencies, which I like. So the snare is quite simple. I have an EQ here. For snare presence, I've used one of these stock presets. I'm basically boosting the low end at around at 220 hertz. This is kind of like the mid range. It adds more warmth to the snare, and I boosted a bit at 4k hertz just to add some presence, and the high frequencies as well, just to add a little bit of air in the snare. This is the top one. And here I've again boosted the mid frequencies, and I'm removing some of the clarity because I don't want to. I want my snare to be more full and a bit more dull, just a bit. So I've turned down a bit the frequencies around 1k hertz, just a bit, and I've added a room reverb. I've turned up the decay, and everything else is basically the same. I'm just turning up the size at 6%. But I like my snare to have a lot of decay. So next, I'm leaving the hi-hat. This is something I usually change on the overhead channels right here. I leave the hi-hat right here, and the tones as well. They are usually catched by. I'm just keeping the same. I want to have their natural sounds, and what I change is on the overhead channels right here. So on the dynamic mics, they're really cool. I don't have to apply an equalizer or something. I'm just putting a plate reverb, and I'm adding more power because I like the metallic sound of the plate reverb of Spirit Drummer 3. And I'm not doing anything else. However, on the condenser mics here, I'm turning down the low end. I'm removing some of the low end frequencies, and I'm doing quite a big band, -8 decibels, which is really low level. And here on the ambient near, this is the mic which is near to the drums for the ambience. I've just removed using a notch filter, removing the mid frequencies around 300 hertz. It's just they're kind of they're muddy, and they're really strange. They're just really strange. They're really muddy, and I really don't want them. They're just totally changing in my whole sound. And this is pretty much it. this is what I've done here on the individual tracks. Of course, I've controlled I've turned up all the bleed levels, and yeah, for on the master track here I have applied an EQ first. uh, I'm just high passing and low passing as well, and I'm keeping the mids here. I'm just balancing the mids. Nextly, I put a tape simulator, which is really nice analog saturation. It works like that. um, I don't want too much drive. I don't want them to buy too much. But what I do is I'm adding some noise, some flutter as well. The bias doesn't do much of a difference to the sound, and I'm speeding a little bit, just a bit. So this way I'm keeping it clean. I'm keeping the master clean, but I'm still adding some nice analog saturation. Nextly, I've added a punch exciter, which really works. No, it really works well. It adds some compression, and here I have a dry wet knob. I'm keeping this pretty low, but I apply quite medium compression, and I have this vocal mode, which is uh, it it adds kind of a harsh high frequencies when it's turned on, and I usually don't like these harsh frequencies, and I keep it off, but it still adds compression, and it just has that warm compression and punch compression as well. So after that, I've put a plate reverb again, and I've turned up just a bit the cover. I really like this metallic feeling of the plate reverb on my drums, and I've turned the diffusion as well, turned up, and uh, when I have this turned up, it kind of washes away the sound, so I have turned down the size a bit. It usually stays at 50%, it's the normal, and I turn it down a bit. And I'm just keeping it real dry. This is just to add character. I don't want to make them too big. This is why I have all these ambient mics and room additional mics, so I don't want to use too much reverb, and I'm just adding it for the metallic sound of the plate reverb. And finally, I'm placing a compressor limiter right at the end. Just medium ratio, medium attack, and a slow release. So I just have a nice. It's really compressor limiter. It's not. It's neither compressor, neither a limiter. It's something combined together. It works like that on the master track. So this is basically for how am I mixing my drums. Here I have one user mic, one mic that I've for myself. I don't have buses. I usually don't do. I don't place buses. I don't use them. And this is literally all the things I do for mixing my drums in Spirit Drummer 3. It's nothing hard. It's not something really complex. It's just basically mixing drums. It has nice stock plugins and stock presets as well. And yeah, this is pretty much it about mixing in Spirit Drummer 3.